Okay, welcome. Good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Jonathan Grossman, and I'm thrilled to be with you guys, starting your prep or in the middle of your prep for the February bar exam. I'm not going to ask you how you're doing. I know how you're doing. That's why you're here. You're pissed off. You're freaking out, blah, 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 blah. Everything's going to be okay. The purpose of the first of these webinars is to try to give you some perspective about where you should be, what you should be focusing on, what you shouldn't be focusing on as we're still in the middle of January, and specifically, how do I use the AdaptiBar program the best way? A lot of people love AdaptiBar, but in my opinion, they're using it in the wrong way. So while they're enjoying using it, they're not really getting the most out of it. For all of these webinars, some more, some less, I always like to talk to both of my communities out there. I know there are some first-time takers that are doing one of the commercial courses and want to use AdaptiBar. And there are some people who've taken the bar before and are going back again. So I will address kind of both communities individually. Some are collective messages that apply to everybody. And of course, there's some unique things I like to point out. So each one of you feels like, hey, he's speaking to me, and we have a little more targeted approach. Okay? So, one big problem that a lot of people have right now, to be candid, is you're doing too many questions too quickly. The second problem, which I'll talk about later, is you're too overemphasizing the stats, the percentages. And one affects the other. You know how it goes. You have a bad set of questions. Let me panic. Let me do 20, 30, 50, 70 more. And you're using up a lot of the bank of questions that you really want to preserve for the end of this month and all of February to really get into the bar exam, peaking at the right time. So again, I'll go back. For first-time takers, you're using your course, you're using AdaptiBar. As you're probably finding out, the course is a full-time job in and of itself. I recommend, and again, there's exceptions to the rule, modify this however is comfortable for you. And I teach all the time, not every subject is the same. So you may be able to blow through tort in a day and a half and really feel good about it and have more time to practice. Or it's contracts or property, and maybe I should be waiting an extra day or two to do additional practice. I should take a little more time to review the law. Remember, as great as a product as AdaptiBar is for the bank of questions, it's only as good as your knowledge of the underlying law. I'll go back. First time taker. My recommendation is do what your course tells you to do Monday to Friday, learning the law, their practice sets, making sure that you're reviewing and certainly understanding the law. Then I would leave the weekend to do some additional AdaptiBar questions as a review. They go through property and torts Monday to Friday. Okay, on Saturday and Sunday, or Friday night, Saturday and Sunday, I can do an extra 10 or 15 tort and property questions on the weekend each day as review of whatever I did. We're now into week 3 or 4. You want to go back and do 4 or 5 questions from the first topic you did on the weekend as well. A couple more from the second subject. You follow? Don't get ahead. Use the weekend for review when you can, and that should be your AdaptiBar specific practice time. If you're doing your course and outlining and doing what the course tells you to do for your practice questions, and then sneaking in AdaptiBar questions at 9 o'clock at night, you're feeling it, it's too much. And that's why many of you miss a lot of those questions because you're so freaking exhausted and stressed that you're not reading them the right way. Two, you again may need the extra time, an hour or two in the evening, to really review the law. I don't believe anyone can watch a contract lecture for 4 hours and then do some outlining and reviewing and then just go do 20 contract questions at night. You still need more time to digest more of the material. But what do I say all the time? Be honest with yourself. If you know you're not really comfortable with the material, just trying 20 questions to see what happens is a waste of time, in my opinion, and you're wasting the questions. Because remember, once you do the question, you're inevitably going to see it again the second or third time. And that's why people always complain, hey, John, I'm seeing the same questions in February. I'm scoring 85%, but it's not a challenge. Right. That's because you blew through too many in December and January. Preserve this as extra practice for the test. Use your course questions to learn and the application of the law to learn the rules. And then you're using AdaptiBar to say, okay, on the exam, now I'm practicing taking the test. So if you're a first-time taker doing your course, oh my God, 9 o'clock at night, I'm still outlining, I just finished the assignment. Should I sneak in an extra 15 on AdaptiBar? No. If you need that extra time, A, review your law. Two, I know the law already, John. Okay, use the time to go back and review what you did last week and the week before. You're a first-time taker, you're no doubt figuring out what I always talk about. Everyone could be great at the subject they did on December 21, 23, 27, or January 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of the rules do you remember right now from subjects number one, two, or three? Do you need an hour or two each night to say, wait a minute, I'm going to go back and review because as we move forward towards the end of the month, when are you going to review? You're going to cram 7 subjects in February? That's where the stress comes in. You want the time in February to do more AdaptiBar questions. That's when you do them, but that assumes you already know enough of the black letter law. So first time taker, if you're feeling moving forward, I'm starting to lose what I had each night, Monday to Friday, review. Recite those rules. Keep more of those buzzwords at the tip of your tongue. They're falling into the back of your head now with some dust. As you're feeling better and better by Friday, hey, Saturday morning, I'm going to get on AdaptiBar. Let me try 5 or 7 tort. Let me try 5 or 7 con law on AdaptiBar. Let me make sure now I'm really retaining the law. I'm back in my mojo. I got my confidence back. Got a little extra sleep. Slept in an extra half hour on Sunday or Saturday. Use the weekend for that additional AdaptiBar practice. Now, we'll change the schedule later. You're a repeat taker. I'm not doing a course, John. Been there, done that. I'm living on AdaptiBar. Okay, that's a problem. One common problem for repeat takers is they hate the outline so much and the content that they just want to do more, or they say, yeah, you were right, John. First time, you're absolutely right. I just was studying so much, I was learning so much, I didn't have time to do enough practice. They overcompensate. And then they go do 50, 70, or 100 a day, or 50 a day and 100 on the weekend, and you're basically just burning out. You're going to abuse all the questions by the end of the month and not have any fresh ones to do. So again, even if you're doing your own thing, most people across the country don't know enough black letter law by heart. I say this very humbly. Obviously, I don't have to sound like a used car salesman. You know me. That's why you're here on the webinar. A lot of people say to me, hey, John, I love your videos. I watch them all the time. I spend more time with you than I do with my family during bar prep. Haha. I don't take that for granted, and I humbly, sincerely appreciate it. No question. But I always tell those people, you shouldn't need to be watching the same thing 3, 5, 7, 9 times. When someone's watching too much, they're not retaining. Okay? Just like the flashcards. I always joke about the people that have the ring. They go to Office Max, buy that ring, and they put the 700 cards on the ring. I carry my cards everywhere I go with John. I always like to flip the cards. When you flip the card, it's great because it's like sugar. It feels good because you're looking at the law. I know this. I know this. If I grab the ring away from you, what do you know? So for my repeat friends, okay, you want to I reviewed the outline. I skimmed the outline. I looked at everything. Then I jumped into practice. On average, a lot of people jump into practice before they really know the buzzwords by heart. Be honest with yourself. Again, if it's, I know tort, I fixed my problem, and I swear to you, John, I could recite these rules, okay, then you're ready to practice. But if you know you need an extra day or two, remember, I say to both of you guys, this is a test about accuracy, not quantity, not speed. That's the key. So make sure that you're really focusing as much on my reading comp, that I'm reading the questions the right way, not just doing tons of them and hoping something good's going to happen at the end. Okay, so for my repeat taker, yeah, you're going to use AdaptiBar as your base of your Q bank for sure. But again, don't just be doing 50. Now I'll talk to both communities. I was just in a school today where I teach, and I heard this 15 times from February takers. There is a school of thought that says, hey, John, can I just do tons of practice and I'll learn the law from doing the questions? I personally don't believe that. Okay. When you do a question and you get it wrong, can you refresh the law that you forgot? Is everyone going to forget something? Absolutely. Absolutely. But what happens? You do the question, you get it wrong, so you're already depressed. You look at the explanation. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's okay. So I'm going to write that rule down. I make Excel spreadsheets from all the rules, John. Okay. But when you do that, you see the rule on Monday at 6 o'clock. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are you going to remember it? Probably not. The retention is the problem. And that's why people do a lot of that writing of the rule, but they're still making the same mistakes 3 weeks from now. That's why a lot of repeat takers do thousands of questions. They study very hard, but their overall number never changes much. That's because you're making the same mistake. Whatever rules you're not comfortable with or don't know, you keep missing them. So again, I say, use the time now to overly focus on the law. I always say the first half of bar prep should be 2/3 law, 1/3 practice, so that the back end of bar prep should be 3/4 practice and a little bit of review. For my first time takers, that's when your course gives you the simulated MBE exam. Okay, at some schools, some people are doing that this weekend. Some are a little later into January. But if you're a first-time taker, when your commercial course gives you an MBE simulated exam, to me, that's halftime. Because after that exam is over and they review, they're not going back to MBE. They're finishing up the essay or writing content. So you got to get to that MBE simulated and know the law as well as you possibly can. So when that is over, then you want to segue and say, now I can basically do 20, 30, 50 AdaptiBar questions every single day, 7 days a week. That's going to build my stamina, my concentration, my timing, my consistency, etc. You're using the product then to really practice taking the test. You're still in learning mode now. So over focus on law, rules, which then allows you to do the questions and you'll get more right. Same for my repeat takers. A lot of people fly through all 7 outlines. Okay, I'm done with my review. Let me do questions now. But whatever you're going to practice right now, whatever the first subject is that you reviewed was probably 3, 4 weeks ago or longer. So nobody remembers those rules. That's why you're screwing up half those questions. Take a time out, get back to basics. First half of bar prep, law, some practice. Second half of bar prep, end of the month, all of February, you should be doing a lot more practice. So just kind of tweak or rework your timeline or your time frame. Be honest with which subjects do I really feel strong. And again, whether you're a first time taker or repeat taker, hey, John, I appreciate the advice, but tort, evidence, crim law, I got those. Okay, again, any subject you're feeling really good about, certainly feel free to practice those questions. First timers, I recommend again on the weekend so you can follow your course. Repeat takers, yeah, you're going to practice a little bit every day. Again, I recommend less than more now so that February you're seeing a lot of those fresh questions. For both of you guys, there's also this thing about should I do the questions in exam format or practice format? I'm taking simulator tests now, John. It's January. Don't simulate anything, okay? Plenty of time in February to simulate. I'll be telling you in subsequent webinars when and how to do that. Right now, I do believe you should be doing the questions in the practice format. I do the question, I see the answer, because you're still, like I said, learning from your mistakes. You with me? Timing and all that's going to come. And what happens when you do too many of the exam format kind of questions? When you do that, most people, I'm generalizing, do those questions too fast because why are you taking the test? Because you want to see the number and see how you're doing. You want that ego stroke. You want to feel good. Okay. But what happens? In your haste to finish, to see the score, you end up screwing up the reading comprehension. Don't worry about the number. If you're doing it in practice mode, they'll keep your stats also. You'll know how you're doing. But don't think you're practicing the test in the middle of January. Maximize your points, maximize your potential in each subject one by one by one, and then later you mix the questions and you do them in exam format. You follow? I know a lot of people do the diagnostic things at the beginning. This is where I am. Okay, but those days are over. And bluntly, a lot of those diagnostics don't mean anything because you haven't started learning. So you could be great at tort and just forgot some stuff and your diagnostic score was low. Throw that out now. Treat each subject the same in that, how well am I with my recitation of the law? How am I reading my questions? That's the key. Okay? Each subject you're doing, do those questions do tort questions, do property. Don't mix anything now. You want to make sure you're maximizing your law knowledge and your reading in each subject and in practice mode. So if you miss a question, you say, oh my gosh, I forgot that rule, or oh my God, John would kill me. I'm an idiot. I can't believe I didn't see. It was the man, not the friend. I read too fast. That's what happened to me. You want to see why you're making those mistakes now. So you study those mistakes and don't make them later. Speaking of that, to me, not enough people use their mistakes as examples to learn from those mistakes. What do I mean by that? I recommend every weekend, okay, just because everyone's busy during the week, Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday, go back and review the stupidest, silliest reading mistakes that you made in the last 7 days, right? You got your questions, you can star them, you can flag them, you can look up the past questions, you can do that by subject. You play around with the settings button there, past questions, wrong questions. You can do that by subject. You can go find the mistakes you made in the last week for tort or property or contracts. Look at those mistakes. Study those mistakes. What am I always talking about? Why did you make the mistake? Which questions are you missing because you forgot the rule, a piece of the rule, a buzzword? You make a list of those rules and you shove those rules in your head immediately. Okay? That's not going to fix itself. If we're in the middle of January and you're still forgetting some buzzwords from the previous week or before, you better put that in your head now, and then all of a sudden you're not going to miss those questions for the next 6 weeks. If you realize you missed the question, I picked A. The right answer is B, red and green. No, I knew this rule. I knew the rule perfectly. If you knew the rule, then the reason you missed the question was the reading comprehension. I screwed up the reading. Again, at the risk of sounding like a used car salesman, but you're already here. For those of you that haven't, I recommend the standalone video that's on the video page called Mastering the MBE. That is about an hour and 20 minutes of me going over the most common reading mistakes people make, even if they know all the law. Should you read the call of the question? Why shouldn't you? What happens if you do? Avoid getting it down to two. And I detail a very specific little three-step approach that if you read the questions this way, every single question the same way, you should see a different consistency in how you're reading. So if you haven't looked at that and you still feel like I'm missing too many of these questions because I'm doing something with my reading, I do know the law. I get what you said, John, but I swear to you, in these 4 or 5 subjects, I know the law perfectly. Then it's a reading comp problem. That Mastering the MBE video would definitely tweak and change your approach, and I think you'll find a little more consistency. Even if you saw it, I'd review your notes from it, and or that's why when you see on the weekend what mistakes you made, it should be very easy for you guys to separate. These were my mistakes of the law that I'm forgetting. These are the mistakes I'm screwing up my reading comp. If you really study those reading mistakes, yeah, every time I do a recipsa question, I'm not seeing it. When I do a product liability question, I'm always picking defective product. I never see the other issues. Every time I do con law, I pick commerce clause because the question says it's the strongest argument, but I don't see equal protection and due process. I'm missing something in the facts. Now I got to go back into those fact patterns. So take the week on a Saturday or Sunday, take an hour and really study those kind of mistakes. The more you see it in the facts, when those questions, the new versions of those questions pop up next week and the week after, they're going to light up like the ball in Times Square on New Year's Eve. And that's where all of a sudden you have that quote unquote epiphany and say, now I see it. I talk all the time about raw knowledge alone is not enough. I need reading comp. Some people overly rely on their reading comp and don't have enough law. Always be asking in which subjects do I need some extra review of law versus I know the law in this subject. Where do I need to focus more on my reading? It's not the same in every subject. Some of you know a lot of tort and criminal law or evidence, but you're screwing up the reading. Some of you are doing tons of property questions, maybe before you should. I think I need an extra night or two to go back and really focus on those damn rules. Because if I just do more questions, every time I see Greenacre, I turn blue and I run in the other direction. Be honest with yourself. Also, when you miss a question and you read the explanation, yes, I didn't write them, but smarter people than me did. Of course, I think the explanations written on the AdaptiBar questions are fantastic. But if you look at the question and you got it wrong and you read the first 2 lines of the explanation and you say to yourself, I knew that. I know that. Then the problem is the reading, meaning stop wasting time reading the minutia of the rest of the explanation. The value of the rest of that explanation is to, if you didn't know the law, if you forgot the law, if first time takers, if your instructor in your course did a bad job teaching you the law, if you watch my video and I talk too fast and I didn't explain it correctly, hey, the explanation could give you that extra third or fourth example of everything. That's the value of it. But if you knew what the rule is, Reading more minutia isn't going to help you. And then what do people do? They add more of the minutia in the explanation to their outline, which is why their outline becomes too long, and now all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed. This is the problem. Don't add more. You're focusing on the definition. So if you're adding more law thinking that's the problem, but you did know the definition, that's a waste of time. Focus on the facts. Focus on the reading mistakes. Use the explanations to help you understand and refresh some law. That's fantastic. But if you knew it, go back to the facts. Use the material in an educational way, not just to read and outline all over the place. Ultimately, what are they testing you on every single question? Black letter, one-liner definitions and some reading comprehension. If you know the law and you're getting it down to the two, again, that's the reading problem that mastering the MBE video is going to help you. In the next webinar we're going to do in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to walk through some questions to really focus you more on reading comp and what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. So we'll be able to do some actual questions in real time with you guys. But in the meantime, again, be honest with yourself and see where am I going with that. Don't overly outline the explanations to then overwhelm you with too much information. Next, the stats. Okay? Everybody's obsessed with the numbers. I get it. I get it, of course. First time taker. Right now, don't worry so much. Okay? And even for a repeat taker, you really again want to focus on what I just said, which is if I'm at 65% in one subject and 57% in another subject, how can I get that up? It's either the law or it's the reading. Too many people say, you know what? I just need to do more questions. Eventually, I'll figure it out. But then 150 questions later, they realize the numbers didn't move. Again, that's what I should have listened to John. I should have taken, I want to see the green, John. You know that problem in bar prep right now? You do your questions, you click the button, there's that little millisecond of nausea in the pit of your stomach where please be green, please be red, oh, red. And you have this roller coaster of emotion, genius, idiot, genius, idiot. One minute I'm Chief Justice Roberts, the next minute I'm in the fetal position in bed. I never should have gone to law school. You want the consistency over time. For many of you, you're not going to get the consistency today or tomorrow in all 7 subjects. Your number will not be one line of the same times 7 for most people. It just can't. It just can't. But you're dying for numbers, okay? Right now, middle of January, 60% or above in any subject, and you're okay. You're in the ballpark. You're okay. For contract, property, con law, fine. Tort, crim law, evidence, these are the very definitional subjects. You're shooting for a little higher. And again, you guys may be, some of you in different chronology, you may not have covered it yet. You just did it. You're doing your first set, all that stuff. So again, I'm talking big picture to everybody out there, okay? Right now, if you're in the 50s in any subject, normally, generalization, usually that means there's some extra buzzwordy definitions you're rusty on, confusing, don't know, mixing up. Okay? If you're in the low 60s, you pretty much have a decent handle on the law. You could always steal a couple of more rules in there somewhere. I'm greedy, but more of it is the reading. You get to 65, excellent, you're locked in. You're locked in. Yeah, in some subjects, could you get a little higher? Yes, but right now I'm talking about, don't worry. What happens though with people when they obsess too much about the numbers? The good stuff, oh yeah, I'm at 64 in that, I'm at 63, I'm at 67 in that one. Then what do? You stop doing questions in those areas to go back to the ones that you're in the 50s. Don't do that. Don't do that. So if you're doing your extra practice on the weekend, you maintain some practice even in the good subjects, which is why I say fewer questions for maintenance. Because you know what happens. If not, I'll tell you. As soon as you stop doing practice questions in the good subjects, those go right back down. And then people get really, really anxious. So you want to maintain the good, and slowly that'll even eke up a little bit because you're focusing on the reading and you're improving on seeing the same questions over, all that stuff. And on the lower subjects, again, first and foremost, ask yourself, do I really need to stop doing contract questions for a few days and go back over my notes? I think so, because I'm just blowing through these questions and I don't know what I'm doing. Then you're wasting a valuable tool. Use, like I say, during the week to focus on the review of the law. And then on the weekend, I can do some extra practice questions. Quality over quantity. Use the program the way it was meant to be used. If, again, at the risk of sounding like a used car salesman, if you're just doing the practice questions, but you said, hey, let me see what this guy's got to say, and you're not familiar, yes, at again, the risk of sounding like a used car salesman, I have videos that are a little more concise and broken down than a lot of the commercial stuff. You'll also note on the video page that the videos are broken down in subtopics. So a lot of my first time taker friends say, you know, I'm in my course and I got through the lecture and blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty good at tort, but I stink at product liability. I'm decent at evidence, but I stink at hearsay. You will see on the video page that you can actually just choose to get one of those subtopics where I could then teach you the condensed law in 30, 40 minutes or so, and that hopefully can fix the entire subject and have a huge statistical difference. You feel like, hey, I didn't learn con law in law school. I've gone through the course. I didn't really understand it. Can I teach you what you need to know in con law in 3.5 hours? Yes. If you know tort and you're feeling really good about tort and you're here just to practice the questions, no, don't watch me say the same thing for 3.5 hours. It's a waste of time. Focus more on your review and you're practicing the questions. We don't BS anybody here at AdaptiBar. I don't want to waste your time or your money. If you're thinking, I didn't really understand contracts from my course, I don't want to go back and rewatch 8 hours, I can't read another 120 pages, then I would be your plan B to get the law in your head. You understand 50, 60, 70% of the material, and I just need some little pocket areas to fix. You can literally choose those subtopics. You're feeling good with the law, fantastic. Maintain by your constant review. And then I would recommend the Mastering the MBE video in case, if and when, you feel you need that little tweak in terms of your approach. The numbers are only an indication of where you are yesterday, today, or tomorrow. You can't pass the bar in January, you can't fail. So if you get 75% on a set or a couple days, I'm thrilled for you, but ultimately it doesn't really mean anything. You're at 55% on a couple subjects or overall, you're not going to fail the bar necessarily. It doesn't mean anything. It just means, hey, I probably need to take a step back. And if I'm in the 50s, push more law and feel better about the content before I start jumping on there and doing the questions. Otherwise, you're just burnt out with questions and you haven't actually learned anything. A lot of people will reach out to me and say, John, I've done 3,000 questions. I've done 4,000 questions. That's the problem. Let me talk to those people for a minute. The repeat taker friends who've done a course once or twice and have done AdaptiBar a couple of times because they don't like anything else. I get it. I don't recommend anything else either for obvious reasons. When and if you come across a question, I know I've done this. I've done this question like 5 times. I used to pick A, the answer is B. Let me click B. A lot of people will call or email me and say, John, the last couple of times I use AdaptiBar, I'm scoring 85% on the practice, but then I fail the bar. What's going on? You're memorizing hypos. You're so familiar with all the questions that subconsciously you're just clicking buttons and you're getting a high score. But then when you go to your exam and you see 50, 70, 100 questions you've never seen before, you don't know what to do. This is also going to happen to my first time takers. After you're going to do your course questions, then you're going to do AdaptiBar. And yeah, by the middle of February, like the cliche in bar prep goes, how many ways can they ask a battery question? So a lot of the hypos begin to look the same. And even subconsciously, and in your haste to do the questions, you're going, oh, I know this one. It's about the guy with the bus. It's A. Oh, this is the motorcycle one. It's C. You know what that happens. Even if you know what the right answer is, don't just click the button and get the good score. What should you do? You should ask yourself, okay, I used to pick A, but now I know the answer is B. Why is the answer B? Don't just click it. Ask yourself, if John was sitting across a desk from you and I said to you, why the hell's B the right answer? Why did you used to pick A? What's wrong with C and D? If you can't answer those questions, you're just picking a letter and you're not learning anything. So you ultimately can click B and get the right answer, but learn from those. Yeah, I used to pick A because I always thought this was strict liability, but now I see it's a products liability question. It makes total sense. I used to pick the dying declaration answer, but now I see it's just hearsay because it looked like dying declaration, but they removed a couple of those elements. That was the reading comp on my part. Now I see that. And C and D, that was talking about the best evidence rule. That was just garbage. If you could have that 15-second conversation with yourself and see why the answer is B, why did you used to pick A, why are C and D stupid, now you'll get a good score, but now you're working the program. And you will be able to apply that same thought process on the day of the bar. The little voice is going to talk to you. If the little voice is just telling you as you're doing questions, it's A, it's B, it's A, 90%, look at me, you're not really learning anything. Again, be honest with yourself. So big picture, I'm trying to throw a lot at everybody to kind of get that in there. For now, practice mode, so you learn from the mistakes. Leave the exam mode for later. Don't obsess over stats. Use it as a tool. You're in the 60s, you can improve by getting better at your reading. You're in the 50s, maybe I stop doing questions for a couple days and I go and I review some law first. My first time takers, use AdaptiBar on the weekends so you're not just clicking buttons at 9:30 at night when you're exhausted. Work your course Monday to Friday. Use AdaptiBar as your supplement on the weekend. Once you've done your MBE simulated exam in your course, then do I recommend using AdaptiBar exclusively after that? Yes, I do. Be honest with yourself. You get a question wrong. Why'd you get the question wrong? Don't run to do another one. Don't overly use the minutia of law in the explanations. Use the explanations to refresh or teach you or give you a good example of a rule, for sure. But if I knew the rule, I really want to go back and focus on the reading comprehension. These are practical things this time of year. They say in sports, don't be a scoreboard watcher, meaning you're in the game, you look at the scoreboard, oh my God, we're losing. Oh my God, we're going to lose. And what happens? You take your eye off the ball. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a Jet fan, so I got my own problems. We're not going to the playoffs. We're not going anywhere. We don't even do it the right way. So, but a real professional organization knows the best defense is a good offense. If the better I know the law, the more confident I'm going to be with the question, and you are more present. You're more intentional when you read the hypo. When you see John owned Greenacre, John and Bob entered into a contract, and you say, I don't think I know this. I hate contracts. Mentally, you're kind of half checked out of the question. And what happens when you do that? You tend to skim and look at the answer choices rather than focus on the questions. And that is the key. Okay? So, in terms of in terms of reviewing the black letter, what's my number one go-to? Every school where I teach, I say this every single day. Constant repetition, constant recitation. Use your outline, your note cards to help get the information in your head. Okay? First time taker, you made your outline, keep it concise. You're reviewing, I joked about the note cards. You're reviewing the note cards to just get it in there. As soon as it's in, if you drive to school every day or wherever you study, breakfast, lunch, dinner, doing the laundry, waiting 20 minutes for your Starbucks drink, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you can always be reciting black letter law. If you can speak it, then you know it. Don't be afraid of what you're going to forget. Everybody's forgetting something. No one knows everything. But if I know 5%, 10% more law then at the end of February than I do now, that's a ton of points you could potentially be getting right. So, whatever you've already reviewed, hey, if I sat down with that outline tonight for a half an hour and I reviewed my cards or my notes, trespass to chattel conversion, larceny, burglary, larceny. Do I still remember the difference in larceny by trick and false pretenses? Do I still remember IIED versus NIED, admission versus statement against interest, character versus impeachment, etc.? Am I getting rusty on that? What's that thing again? If that's happening, go back to your notes, give yourself a decent little review, and then walk around the house and speak. The more you recite, the more it's wired in. Think of every song you know. Think of the lines to all your movies, sports fans, the stats. You never studied and memorized that. That's from constant repetition. It's called muscle memory. Once that's locked in, even if you forget it for 5 or 10 seconds, it's already hot wired in there. It'll come back to you. So you can't read 7 outlines, as I said earlier, all in February. I got to wean off of the note cards. Push yourself, test yourself. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Better you realize what you're beginning to forget in January than in the middle of February. Especially what I yell at my first time takers to prepare for the simulated exam in your course. Or if you're a repeat taker and you want to say, hey, let me do 100 just to see how I do, John. Again, before you run to do that, make sure you're feeling more comfortable with the rules. Because if you're just jumping up, let me do 100, let me do 200, let me see what happens. I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get 50% of the questions wrong, and then you're going to be upset. So if you can't speak it, you don't know it. Refresh the good ones. This is my other study tip. A lot of people spend too much time now and get bogged down with the bad subject. I hate property, John. I hate Civ Pro. I hate contracts. So you do some marathon every night, you're buried in books with the bad subject. I don't think that's a good idea now. For right now, the reason for this little get together is to say, okay, out of the 7 subjects, how many do I feel good or decent? I'm feeling really good about these 2.5, and these 3 over here, I'm not bad at, John, but you're right. I think if I made myself take another hour or 2 each night over the next week, I could feel really good about 5 of them. Then do that now. This is the time. So moving forward, then you can have more time to spend with the bad one. The bad one is never going to get good. The bad one, you're just trying to make less bad. You're never going to master the topic if 3 years of law school and 4 or 5 weeks of bar prep hasn't helped you. You understand? But that's okay. You can be a little lower in property and much higher in crim law and tort and pass the bar by 20 points. Easy. Remember, except for Florida, because everything's crazy in Florida, most jurisdictions, all the UBE jurisdictions, there isn't some number that you have to pass the MBE. You're literally just trying to get as many questions correct as you can to balance out the writing portion. So they average, you know what, how they add them and blah, you can get your score. So whether I get a this number or that number, okay, you're just trying to take the pressure off the other part. But there is no cutoff. Oh my God, if I don't get this score, I'm going to fail. No. Remember, the Scantron only picks up the correct answers. The more rules you have, the more ammunition you can feel that I have a chance on more questions. The fewer silly reading mistakes that I make, the better chance I have on getting a higher score. More law, fewer reading, the overall numbers start to begin to shoot up. Step 1 is fix the law problem now. What you know, keep in your head. How do you keep it in your head? Repetition. You forget, now I can quickly go back at my cards or my outline, and I just shove it back in my head. Everywhere you are, there's tons of, well, the playoff football going to happen. Watch the football game for a break. Every 5 minutes is a TV timeout. Put the TV on mute, go to the kitchen, and recite some law. Come back, recite some law. Halftime. You get my point. Don't worry about how many hours. This is the stupidest question in bar prep. How many? I don't know. I'm not your mother. How many hours do you have? Everyone's in a different situation. Don't worry about the amount. But if you're mindful, as they say now, from the moment I get up and I'm brushing my teeth, I could be reciting some law in my head. I'm percolating my coffee and I'm making my eggs. I could do a couple of more rules. Every time I go to the grocery store, I go to the door to pick up my Uber Eats. I can always be reciting a couple, a couple, a couple. Don't think all, I'm going to put in 8 hours on Saturday. A little, a little. Don't do 100 questions. Do 3 or 4, 4 or 5, 6 or 7. Build momentum. You're shooting to be decent at the end of next month, not today or tomorrow. Pace yourself, like the cliche goes in bar prep. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I agree with that. Meaning, don't burn out by January 2021, 23. Okay? Be honest. Even with you a lot of repeat takers, you have your schedules, right? I did my calendar, John. By January 30th, I'm going to be done with this. What happens with those calendars? Life happens, work, family, life, and then all of a sudden you can't do what you claimed. Don't worry. Don't worry. If you need an extra day or 2 or 3 with a given subject, who cares? As long as you're not forgetting what you all the time you already invested in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. And again, how do you know that? Constant repetition, constant recitation. The words should be falling out of your mouth. So when you're sitting there doing your questions, more of these buzzwords bounce off the page. That's the ticket. I don't worry about the springing, shifting executory interest. How can a 98-year-old woman have 5 kids and who's alive and being? I have no idea. Pick C and get the hell out. But you could be getting confused between a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed. I like to joke when I talk about future interests. Many of those interests all begin with the letter R. As stupid as this is, reversion, remainder, right of reentry, possibility of reverter, you're going to have two, three, four questions on that stuff. If you're already confusing which one's which, who's the grantor's interest, what's the grant, these are simple things that in 20 minutes, if you memorized it, it's easy to keep in your head. That could be another two or three property questions. All of a sudden, I'm doing pretty good. Who cares about the weird garbage? Max more questions on the material and questions you could get, you could know, you can know. Lastly, the numbers. On AdaptiBar, there's like what, 350 questions, I think, in each subject. Or your course, you're doing thousands of questions in your course. So when you're doing, you're 150, 250, 300 questions in on a subject, your number isn't going to change that much. It's the math, the stats, it's kind of baked in already. Get back to basics, okay? There's 27, 28 questions in a subject. Let's take contracts, for example, okay? If there's 28 contract questions on the bar, okay? No matter how much I hate contracts, there's only 28. I've added 200. If you stink at contracts right now, okay, you're still getting about 14 right. The average person, I know as I'm generalizing, the average person is about 50%. Most of you better than that. I'm just being conservative. So if you really stink at the subject and you're at 50% now, where do you want to be at the end of February? 17 out of 28? That's high 50s. 18 out of 28. Ooh, you're killing it. So think about this. If you're at 14 out of 28 now, if you did 28 questions of contracts, you're trying to get by the end of next month to 17 or 18. You're looking for three or four questions of improvement. Which rules am I confusing now that I should get better at? Which kinds of contract questions do I feel I know the law, but I'm screwing up the reading? If you can just fix a few of those, there's your 17 or 18 out of 28, problem solved. You'll still stink at remedies. We all stink at remedies, but I can be better at parole evidence, at third-party beneficiary, some of those formation reading questions. Find the areas of law and the kinds of questions you could know, you should know. You're getting sloppy at the reading. That's why I say you focus on the reading review of your mistakes from last week on the weekend and keep reciting, spitting out the rules of the stuff that just keeps falling out. A couple of more rules in a subject, a couple of fewer silly reading mistakes, and all of a sudden you're getting two or three right more per topic. We'll do it the other math way. If you can just get one more rule in your head that you're not confusing for each subject, that's 7 more raw questions correct. If you make one fewer reading mistake in each subject, that's another 7 questions. That's 14 more raw questions correct just on that alone. Wow. That would be the difference in passing and failing for most of the country between now and the bar. 14 more right? Of course. So when you're looking at these numbers in your course or on Adapt, oh my God, I did 340 questions, I'm still at 58%. Don't worry about that. You worry about how to improve moving forward. I am feeling more confident in more law. I see that I'm making fewer mistakes. My overall percentage may not be moving up that much, but I know that I'm reading them better. I know that I'm knowing more law. That's the key to improvement from mid-January to the end of January and beginning of February. You can't pass or fail now. Get off of that. Don't obsess over stats, good or bad. Focus and be honest. Which subjects do I really need a good little boot camp review of my own? Or I know the law, I just need to be a little more active pushing those rules out, speaking them to make myself confident, not anybody else. Make yourself confident. Hey, he's right, I really know this. That's going to make you more confident when you sit down and practice the questions. And when I sit down and practice the questions, whether you're doing 5, 10, 15, or 25, focus on the reading comp. Slow the bleep down. This is not a speed test. It's an accuracy test. Again, the Scantron only picks up the correct answers. Get more correct. Why are you worrying about question 100? You should be worried about the first 95 of them. Don't do them at 6 a.m. Don't do them at 11:45 p.m. Be lucid and sane. Can't finish the amount of questions I thought I wanted to do today, so do them tomorrow. It literally is a question now of quality over quantity. More questions correct, fewer reading mistakes. You feel you need a little refresher on a substantive matter in a subject? Check out the substantive video. You know all the law? Check out Mastering the MBE to fix the reading problem. Be honest with yourself. Keep reciting law so you know you will be getting more questions correct. Don't panic. There's plenty of time for that later. We're here for you. Use AdaptiBar the way it was meant to practice taking the test, not just do 100 questions as fast as you can and you're obsessed with the numbers. Take a deep breath. Everything's okay. If you're a first-time taker, get to that simulated practice, feeling better with the law. Then you use AdaptiBar obsessively to practice taking the test. Good? Good. Breathe. Everything's okay. Have a good dinner. Review those rules. Review the reading mistakes. Be honest with yourself. All will be well. We'll see you in a couple of weeks to walk through some questions to fix any of those reading issues. And you know what I'm going to say. No matter what the question is, most important thing on these damn questions, of course, is confidence. You read the question. I know the law. I know it's answer choice A. A looks too easy, John. They must be trying to trick me. Stupid. They're not trying to trick you. You're tricking yourself. When you know what the answer is, and you know why A is correct, and you see why B, C, and D are wrong, what does John tell you to do? Shut up and pick it. Go get them. Stay confident, even if you're faking it. Stay confident and aggressive, and I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Take care.